question, the crucial question for India is what its strategy, what its policy towards this new government will be. To help us find answers to these questions, I have Noinama Basu with us, who, as you know, tracks diplomacy for ThePrint and who was in Afghanistan when the Taliban marched towards Kabul. So, Noinama, it's been a while since you've come back from Afghanistan, but you've really followed this so closely and tracked this so closely. If you were to, I'll straight jump to a bit of a speculative question. If you were to speculate on how India would deal with this new government, whether it would recognize it, not recognize it, how would it recognize it, what would you say?
Sure. So, as if you know, Ruhi, after coming back, I've done some stories, as the readers are aware, that India has made it clear that, it will maintain a dialogue, which is what we have seen has been happening even after India sort of wrapped up its embassy in Kabul and our diplomats all came back to India. Within hours of the Taliban taking over in Afghanistan, there has been a dialogue that is going on. We've seen our ambassador in Qatar, he's had a discussion with one of the top Taliban leaders, Tanekzai. And there's this kind of a dialogue that is happening in the sense that right now India is now most concerned about the evacuation exercise that is going on, and the fact that that's not really, I would not say going on, but India is waiting to see how and when the international flights and commercial flights basically resume. So that there are many Indian nationals and Afghan nationals who want to come to India. They are all stuck. So that is the kind of dialogue that they are going to have now. However, we've also done, and we've done several pieces on the fact that right now India is going to adopt a kind of wait and watch approach. It is not going to be easy to recognize a Taliban government in Afghanistan, knowing the past, knowing the history, and the fact that India has always seen Taliban as a militant, as a terrorist group. Having said that, India understands that the thing has changed, the scenario has changed, and for countries like US, China, Iran, the neighboring countries, European Union, what kind of stance will they take? That will also depend on the stance that India will be taking.
Right. So, Noinama, an important step in maintaining diplomatic relations with another country is the embassy there. Now, we know India shut down its embassy in Kabul. Is there any plans of reopening it? Because you've done a story saying that it looks unlikely.
Well, yes, because when you open embassy and you appoint your envoys in each other's capitals is when you have a proper bilateral and diplomatic relationship. In this case, what I'm getting to hear from my sources is that India will maintain a dialogue as far as people-to-people linkages are concerned, because remember, within South Asia, India is one of the largest aid giver. It has, in this last 20 years of war, India has given about $3 billion from the Salma Dam to the Parliament building to many other restoration of the Store Palace. So India has done all of that. The Taliban has made it clear in certain dialogue, through several dialogue mechanisms, that it would want India to continue with those kind of development aid. Afghan students come to India for scholarships. We know India is also one of the preferred destinations for many Afghans for medical tourism.
Right.
So all those is what India wants to continue, and I think that is something the Taliban will also not be, they will also facilitate. But yes, they will not. We will not be probably looking at least in the near future, that a Taliban government appointing an envoy in India, in Delhi, and we will be also having an ambassador in Kabul.
Okay, so I have many questions that have already come in. Let's take the first one from Soham Roy, who is a member of the Print YouTube community. Soham says, our NSA will meet his Russian counterpart tomorrow. President Putin also personally spoke with PM Modi in Afghanistan. Does this suggest growing convergences between India and Russia on Afghanistan?
Well, tomorrow you would not know what kind of a dialogue and whether there will be a proper dialogue between President Putin and NSA Doval, but we know that the BRICS summit is coming up, which is on the 9th, in which of course this discussion would come up, because there will be the Chinese president who's going to be there, the Russian president is going to be there. So this discussion is definitely going to come up. It is also true that tomorrow there is going to be a regional conference of all Afghanistan's immediate neighbors, in which India has not been invited, and these will be countries like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Iran, Pakistan, and all the neighboring countries. So these regional countries will now be probably taking the first step, the roadmap as to how they will be approaching the new Taliban dispensation. But we've seen that the Taliban was expected to announce a new government last Friday. Right. But now we are hearing reports that probably they'll be doing it on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, because that's what is going to also be an occasion for them to announce that the war has ended. Right. And also it is true that the resistance in Panjshir Valley is going on. There's confusing and conflicting reports coming in. Taliban has announced publicly that yes, it has been taken over. We know the Panjshir Valley resistance fighters, especially Mr. Masood, stating that he wants to reconciliate and have an arrangement. So all those technical issues, I guess, would need to be worked out. That's what Taliban spokesperson yesterday also said in the press conference in Kabul. So maybe by Friday they will be announcing the government.
All right. Okay. This question is from Vignesh R. In our wait and watch tactics, is that turning into a strategic paralysis? With this sort of blatant Pakistan intervention, what's stopping us from supporting Panjshir resistance with logistical help of Tajikistan?
Well, India has always put its weight behind the resistance fighters. We know it from history that India had supported Ahmad Shah Massoud as well before he was assassinated right before 9/11. But then, since then, 20 years have passed and many things have changed, global dynamics have changed. Now we are seeing that a lot of support that the Taliban enjoys is not just from Pakistan but also from China. These are the countries which are now entering Afghanistan and trying to have a larger say. It is needless to say that Afghanistan would now need international support because their economy is in tatters. There is nothing called industry there. There is no employment opportunity that is there. So, which is why, in all practical purposes, the Taliban is now looking at China for Belt and Road Initiative, and which is why it has also told India that it should come back and start resume the work that India was doing. But I mean, from India's security perspective, it is now waiting to see what is the kind of government first that the Taliban would set up, and within the Taliban dispensation, what the role that the Haqqani network will be playing. Remember that the Indian embassy was once attacked, and India has a threat we get to hear from the Haqqani network. So, and we've also seen the role that Pakistan is playing there. But I believe that yes, when all these countries are trying to have some say, when Afghanistan is probably on a different track and probably trying to rebuild itself, I think India should also play a larger role in terms of the presence that it had. After all, India had 4 consulates there and 1 embassy. Right now, we don't have any physical presence there, which I believe in the long run could be counterproductive for the neighborhood first policy.
Okay, this is from another valuable YouTube member of the print community. This is Krish Vikram. US seems to have washed its hands off Afghanistan and entered into Quad mode. Won't the current development in Afghanistan distract India from Quad commitments?
Well, I don't think so. The Quad commitment is completely different. See, firstly, the Quad, when it was the first virtual summit that happened, the focus was COVID and pandemic response, vaccines, and many other things. And it was in a larger set of things, it was mostly looked at as a coalition against China. Whether these countries, India, US, Australia, Japan, they admit it or not, this was done to have the Indo-Pacific having a rules-based structure, which they believe that China is not following. So that is different from what is happening today in Afghanistan. Coming to the question whether US has washed his hands off, I don't think so, because we've seen right before US withdrew all its troops on 30th of August, it did some kind of aerial attack within Kabul itself, in which civilians also got killed, because now they have found a new enemy in ISIS-K.
Right.
Now, there are questions that what was the US doing in all these 20 years that suddenly ISIS-K could get a presence there. But I believe, I mean, the fact that the US now says there is the presence of ISIS-K, maybe that is the reason for which US will continue to stay there, and it will not really wash its hands off. I think right now they are also watching as to what kind of a government comes in place, how aid will be given. UN, we have seen, has extended, has said that they will continue to give humanitarian aid, which means that it has a tacit support from the US, of course. But yes, in terms of military intervention, I don't think the Taliban would allow any foreign forces to operate there in Afghanistan.
Okay, Krish has another question. Won't aligning with Russia be more beneficial to India than the US in a post-war Afghan situation?
Well, India has been doing that. If one remembers, in 2019, 2018, when the Moscow format dialogue was taking place between the Taliban leaders and other peace stakeholders, India had its presence there. Even when the intra-Afghan dialogue had started, India was present in Doha as well, and it has been joining hands with Moscow to have this outreach with the Taliban leaders. It has also, joined hands with US, but it has never really directly engaged itself as in like a one-on-one basis. But yes, I mean, India to a very large extent has taken Moscow's support even for its outreach when it comes to the border dispute that we are having with China. So that thing is going on.
Okay. This is from Nishant Rao. How is the Indian government going to have progressive talks with the Afghanistan government when there are people in the government linked directly with a terror group?
So, see, the discussion basically right now is, as I said, and at the cost of repeating myself, everybody is now waiting to see what kind of a government comes up. Now, we are also hearing voices from Kabul that probably the new government that comes up in Kabul is going to be an interim government within which they will understand what role will the Taliban be playing, what role the Haqqani network will be playing. Because remember, Afghanistan is this huge, vast, mountainous desert country where the provinces have a different dynamics altogether. The provinces, even before the Taliban came in, and since I was there in Mazar-e-Sharif and other places, it's a very conservative society. They have their own way of doing things. There are many who told me at that point of time that, we believe Taliban is amongst one of us. And they believe the way the Ashraf Ghani government collapsed, the way Ashraf Ghani fled the country and, just giving the country, throwing it up for all kind of vulnerabilities. They believe that probably now is the time for another government within the Taliban, the dominating Pashto community, for the Pashtuns to come and set up a system. So all those things, all those complex things have to take place, after which when one can look at what kind of measures the Taliban government is taking when it comes to counter-terrorism. For India, it is always a concern that Pakistan has a larger say there. But then, as I said, that if India has its security concerns, it needs to also ensure that it has some kind of physical presence there also, or maybe some kind of linkages to ensure and tell the Taliban that you must ensure that Afghanistan should never be used again as a safe haven for terrorists.
Okay, I'll take this question from Soham Roy. Is the MEA taking the lead on Afghanistan, and is there coordination between the MHA, MOD and MEA on this? Is there a holistic government approach?
Well, right now, as I said, the Prime Minister has set up a high-level group, and ThePrint had reported that as well, in which External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval is there. In terms of also including the Home Ministry, the Defense Minister, all of that, I think that will take place once the government, in Kabul, there's a proper government that takes shape, and what kind of relationship you build up with them. After that, there will be this focus as to whether there will be a comprehensive Afghanistan policy. Right now, as we know, the focus is just on evacuation, taking people out from there, and especially those Afghan nationals who want to come to India, and resumption of flights, resumption of normal operation of the country, and after which I think the government will have to sit and take a comprehensive call as to how they will approach this changing dynamics in Afghanistan.
Okay, Debanik Saha, how is Pakistan perceived by Afghans?
Well, that's a good question. So in Afghanistan, you have a kind of a mixed feelings. They know very well that, yes, they understand that probably because of all the, the kind of turmoils that they have seen, the war itself has happened because of Pakistan. And I'm saying that because people have told me there many times that, had it not been for Pakistan, things would have been different. But there's also another group of people who believe that it is because of Pakistan there could be some kind of movement that had happened. The Taliban could be mainstreamed because of this. But we are seeing right now a lot of protest against Pakistan is going on the streets of Kabul. We've seen the ISI chief going there and discussing just days before the government formation as to what would be the stance of the neighboring countries. But I believe Pakistan is also now waiting to see what kind of a government will Taliban also set up, because it's not going to be easy for Pakistan also to manage in Afghanistan that will not listen to it at all. And for all you know, the Taliban is now going to be completely independent. They'll not depend even on Pakistan after they've won the war to listen to any country as to how they will run their own country. So this is going to be difficult and challenging period for Pakistan as well.
All right. Okay, I'll take one last question from Rahul Rajput. Do you think the present Indian government's policy towards Afghanistan can be summed up as wait and watch?
Yes, so that will be the kind of stance that the Modi government has taken. It will be waiting and watching. And that is not just what India has taken. I think going forward, US will also say the same thing. Some of the European countries will also see, especially because now China is going to have a larger say there. But India is considering the fact that Afghanistan has always considered India as a friendly country, and I've seen the kind of goodwill India has there, which is immense, which one can only hear sitting here, but once you go there, you actually feel it. So I believe that goodwill India needs to work on, and for that it needs to have some kind of policy and approach to make it clear as to what they want. If it has concerns over China and Pakistan, have a larger say there. But yes, coming to the question, it is for now wait and watch. It remains to be seen what Iran does. Iran is also upset. We've seen yesterday there were statements coming out from Iran on the Panjshir Valley resistance. So it's not going to be as easy as one thinks. But again, as I said, maybe this Friday they'll announce the new government, and that's when things will start to unravel.
All right, so it's wait and watch right now, not just for India, but for other global powers as well. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, everybody is essentially waiting to see what sort of a government the Taliban forms. Thank you so much for watching Government Matters and for sending in your questions. Thank you, Noenima, for being with us. Do keep subscribing to our YouTube channel.